In the vibrant heart of New York City, Livia and Dylan forge an unbreakable friendship. Their lives intertwine through shared dreams of art and architecture. From late-night sketches to heartfelt confessions over pizza, they know each other's souls. But when fate beckons Dylan to the sun-drenched cliffs of Capri, a whirlwind romance threatens to redefine their bond. As wedding bells loom amidst the island's jasmine-scented breezes, Livia faces a truth she never saw coming. Her best friend might be her true love. With music, passion, and secrets swirling, one moment will change everything. Will she risk it all for love? Dive into a tale of friendship, courage, and destiny that unfolds against the breathtaking backdrop of Italy. The ending will leave you speechless. Chapter 1. The Birth of a Friendship. The autumn air in New York City carried a crisp edge, swirling golden leaves across the cobblestone paths of Columbia University's campus. It was September 2015, and the quad buzzed with the energy of a new semester. Students hurried between Butler Library and Lowe Memorial Library, their backpacks slung over shoulders, voices mingling with the distant hum of traffic from Broadway. The Gothic architecture of the campus, with its stone arches and ivy-draped walls, felt like a sanctuary of knowledge, a place where history whispered in every corner. Livia Thornton, a freshman architecture major, stood beneath the towering columns of Lowe Library, her sketchbook clutched against her chest, her hazel eyes scanning the intricate cornices above. Her auburn hair, tied loosely in a braid, caught the sunlight, and her freckled cheeks flushed with excitement. She was 18, eager, and utterly captivated by the idea of designing spaces that echoed the grandeur of ancient structures. Livia adjusted her scarf, a soft gray knit her mother had made, and muttered to herself, "If I could just capture that archway's curve." She flipped open her sketchbook, her pencil dancing across the page as she traced the lines of the library's facade. Her love for ancient architecture, Romanesque vaults, Gothic spires, Byzantine domes had brought her here, to a program renowned for its blend of history and design. She was sketching furiously when a voice broke her focus. "Hey, you're gonna wear that pencil down to a nub?" Livia looked up, startled, to find a lanky guy with tousled dark hair and a crooked grin leaning against a nearby column. His green eyes sparkled with mischief, and he held a sketchpad of his own, its edges worn and smudged with charcoal. He wore a faded denim jacket over a band tee, and his sneakers were scuffed, as if they'd seen countless adventures. This was Dylan Whitaker, a freshman in fine arts, whose passion for sacred art icons, frescoes, and medieval manuscripts had already earned him a reputation for intensity in the studio. "Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt," Dylan said, stepping closer. "Just saw you sketching like the building might vanish if you didn't get it down fast enough." Livia laughed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "It's just, look at this place. It's like a cathedral, you know? The way the stone holds stories. I can't help it." Dylan nodded, flipping open his sketchpad to reveal a detailed drawing of a Byzantine angel, its wings gilded with imaginary gold. "I get it. I'm kind of obsessed with old sacred stuff, altars, icons, that kind of thing. This campus feels like it's begging to be drawn." Their conversation flowed effortlessly from there, two strangers bonded by a shared reverence for the past. They sat on the library steps, comparing sketches and trading stories. Livia told him about her dream to restore ancient buildings, to walk through ruins and make them whole again. Dylan shared his fascination with religious art, how he wanted to paint like the masters who poured their souls into cathedral walls. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the quad, they'd agreed to meet again at the campus coffee shop, the Blue Java, the next day. Over the next few weeks, Livia and Dylan became inseparable. They studied together in the library's reading room, surrounded by oak panels and stained glass windows, their books spread across a shared table. Livia would tease Dylan when his charcoal smudged his face, and he'd retaliate by stealing her favorite pencil, holding it hostage until she laughed. One late night, as they pored over a history of Roman architecture, Livia sighed, pushing her notes away. "This is hopeless," she said, rubbing her eyes. "I'm supposed to analyze the Pantheon's dome for my midterm, but I keep getting lost in the details." Dylan leaned over, peering at her sketch. "You're overthinking it? Look at this curve here." He traced a line on her drawing. "It's not just math, it's like the dome's breathing. Imagine you're standing under it, feeling the weight of centuries." Livia stared at him, a smile tugging at her lips. "You're such a poet, Whitaker." "Guilty," he grinned, tossing a crumpled napkin at her. "But seriously, you've got this. You see buildings the way I see paintings. It's all about the soul of the thing." Their friendship deepened through moments like these late-night study sessions, walks through Central Park where they debated the merits of Gothic versus Baroque, and impromptu trips to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. One rainy afternoon, they stood before a medieval altarpiece, its gold leaf glinting under the museum lights. Dylan's voice was hushed, almost reverent. "This is what I want to do," he said, gesturing at the panel. "Paint something that makes people feel bigger, like they're part of something eternal." Livia nudged his shoulder. "You will, just don't get any paint on me when you're famous." "Okay," he laughed, slinging an arm around her. Deal, but you better not start redesigning my studio into some ancient ruin. Their banter was easy, their trust absolute. Livia became Dylan's go-to confidant, especially when it came to his love life. When he went on a disastrous date with a theater major who talked through an entire movie, he called Livia afterward, sprawled on his dorm bed, phone pressed to his ear. She wouldn't stop quoting Shakespeare. He groaned. I mean, I like a sonnet as much as the next guy. But come on. Livia curled up on her own bed across campus, laughed so hard she nearly dropped her phone. You're hopeless, Dylan. Next time, pick someone who doesn't think life's a stage. Want me to vet your next date? Deal, he said, his voice warm. You're the only one I trust to keep me from disaster. Livia helped him navigate breakups, offering advice over pizza at their favorite spot, a hole-in-the-wall joint called Sal's, where the tables were sticky and the jukebox played Sinatra. In return, Dylan was her rock, showing up with coffee when she pulled all-nighters for studio projects, or cheering her on when she presented her designs. One evening, as they worked on a joint project for an art history class, a hypothetical restoration of a Romanesque cathedral, they stayed up until dawn in the architecture studio, surrounded by sketches and empty coffee cups. Livia held up their combined drawing, a fusion of her structural plans and Dylan's ornate fresco designs. This is us, she said, her eyes bright. Your art, my arches. We make a good team. Dylan looked at her, his expression soft. The best team. By their senior year, their friendship was a cornerstone of their lives. They celebrated milestones together: Livia's first internship at a preservation firm, Dylan's first gallery show in a small Soho space. They knew each other's quirks, Livia's habit of humming off-key when stressed, Dylan's tendency to lose his keys daily. They shared dreams, fears, and secrets, building a bond that felt unbreakable, rooted in mutual respect and a love for the past. As graduation loomed, they sat on the steps of Low Library again, the same place they'd met, watching the campus glow under the spring sunset. Promise we'll stay like this, Livia said, her voice quiet, no matter where life takes us. Dylan bumped her shoulder with his. Always. Thornton, you're stuck with me. They clinked their coffee cups, unaware that the future held challenges that would test the depth of their connection, a friendship that carried the seeds of something more, waiting to bloom. Chapter 2. Life after college. The streets of New York City pulsed with life in the spring of 2020. A symphony of honking taxis, chattering pedestrians, and the faint hum of subway trains beneath the pavement. Livia Thornton, now 23, navigated the crowded sidewalks of Soho, her auburn hair cascading in soft waves over her shoulders, catching the late afternoon light like burnished copper. Her hazel eyes, framed by long lashes, sparkled with determination as she adjusted the portfolio under her arm. Livia's beauty was striking. Her high cheekbones and freckled complexion gave her an almost ethereal glow, softened by a warm smile that turned heads as she passed. She wore a tailored blazer over a cream blouse, her style a blend of professional sharpness and artistic flair, a nod to her work as an architect specializing in historical restoration. Today, she was headed to a meeting with a preservation firm, her latest project involving the restoration of a 19th-century brownstone in Brooklyn. Across town, in a sunlit loft in the East Village, Dylan Whitaker stood before a canvas, his paintbrush poised. At 24, Dylan was undeniably handsome, with chiseled features that could have graced a Renaissance sculpture. His dark hair, slightly longer now, fell in tousled waves over his forehead, and his green eyes held a quiet intensity as he studied the half-finished painting, a modern take on a Byzantine icon, with vibrant golds and deep blues. His broad shoulders and lean frame filled out a paint-splattered Henley shirt, and his presence in the studio drew admiring glances from passersby through the loft's large windows. Dylan had become a rising star in the art world, his work celebrated for its fusion of sacred motifs and contemporary emotion, with recent shows in small but prestigious galleries. Despite their diverging paths, Livia and Dylan's friendship remained the anchor of their lives. They met weekly, often at Sal's Pizzeria, a cramped, unlit spot on Bleecker Street where the air smelled of oregano and melted cheese. The jukebox still played Sinatra, and the red vinyl booths were as sticky as they'd been during their college days. On a Friday evening, Livia slid into their usual booth, her portfolio propped against the wall, while Dylan arrived a few minutes later, a smudge of gold paint on his cheek. "You're a walking masterpiece," Livia teased, reaching across the table to wipe the paint off with her thumb. Her touch lingered a moment longer than necessary, though neither noticed. Dylan grinned, his smile lighting up his face, making him look like a movie star caught in a candid moment. "Says the woman, who probably spent her day saving some crumbling mansion. How'd the meeting go?" Livia leaned back, her eyes bright. "They loved my proposal. The brownstones got these incredible cornices, original 1870s. I'm leading the restoration. Can you believe it?" "Of course I can," Dylan said, stealing a slice of her pizza. "You're Livia Thornton, architectural superhero. Those old buildings don't stand a chance." She laughed, swatting his hand. "And you, still painting angels that make people cry?" "Trying," he said, his voice softening. Got a show next month at a gallery in Chelsea. It's a big deal. Livia's face lit up, her beauty radiant in the dim light of the pizzeria. Dylan, that's huge. We're celebrating. My place. Tomorrow night, I'm cooking. Your famous spaghetti, he asked, raising an eyebrow. Or the time you set off the smoke alarm with that experimental lasagna. Shut up, she said, tossing a napkin at him, her laughter filling the booth. Their evenings together were ritual dinners at Livia's cozy apartment in Park Slope, where exposed brick walls and shelves of architecture books created a warm, eclectic space. Dylan would sprawl on her couch, sketching while she cooked, the two of them trading stories about their days. Livia's apartment was a reflection of her love for the past, with vintage lamps and a framed sketch of a Roman arch she'd drawn in college. Dylan's loft, by contrast, was a chaotic artist's haven, canvases stacked against walls, the air heavy with the scent of turpentine. One night, as they sat on Livia's fire escape, sharing a bottle of cheap red wine and watching the city lights, Dylan opened up about his latest romantic misadventure. So, I went out with this curator Alina, he said, running a hand through his hair. She was great, but, I don't know. She kept talking about networking like it was a personality trait. Livia sipped her wine, her lips curving into a smile. You're too picky, Whitaker. You need someone who gets your whole sacred art vibe, maybe a nun. He laughed, his deep voice echoing in the quiet night. Yeah, right. You're the only one who gets me, Thornton. Maybe I should just date you. Her heart skipped, but she played it off, nudging his shoulder. You'd be so lucky, but I'd drive you crazy in a week. Their banter hit a truth neither acknowledged. Their connection ran deeper than most friendships. Livia was Dylan's confidant, the one he called after bad dates or when a painting wasn't coming together. She'd meet him at his loft, sitting cross-legged on the floor as he ranted about a critic who called his work derivative. Derivative, Livia scoffed, tossing her hair back, her beauty catching the light of a nearby lamp. That guy probably thinks a stick figure is high art. Your work's alive, Dylan. It's holy. He looked at her, his green eyes softening. You always know what to say. How do you do that? Years of practice, she said, winking, though her chest felt tight, a feeling she couldn't name. Livia's own career was thriving. At a preservation conference, she presented her work on the brownstone, her poised delivery and striking presence captivating the room. Colleagues whispered about her talent and her beauty, her elegant figure accentuated by a fitted dress. Her auburn hair swept into a sleek, updo. Dylan attended, sitting in the front row, his proud smile brighter than the stage lights. Afterward, they celebrated at a rooftop bar, clinking glasses as the Manhattan skyline glittered below. You were incredible up there, Dylan said, his voice earnest. I mean, I knew you were good, but, wow, you're gonna change the world. Thornton, she blushed, her cheeks glowing. Stop, you're embarrassing me. Besides, you're the one with a gallery show coming up. I'm just trying to keep up. Their friendship was a constant in the chaos of their 20s. When Livia landed a major contract to restore a historic church in Harlem, Dylan showed up with a bottle of champagne, his handsome face beaming as he toasted her success. When his Chelsea show sold out, Livia was there, her applause the loudest. In the room, they were each other's biggest fans, their bond unshaken by time or distance. Yet, beneath Livia's laughter and advice, a quiet undercurrent stirred a feeling she didn't recognize. A warmth that flared when Dylan's hand brushed hers, or when his eyes lingered a moment too long. She dismissed it as affection for her best friend, unaware that it was the first spark of something deeper, waiting to ignite. As they stood on Livia's fire escape one night, the city sprawling below, Dylan raised his glass. To us, he said, his voice soft. The best team in New York. Livia clinked her glass against his, her smile luminous. To us, she echoed, her heart whispering a truth she wasn't ready to hear. Chapter 3, The Italian Escape. The summer of 2023 bathed Rome in a golden glow, its ancient stones warm under the July sun. The city hummed with life scooters zipped through narrow cobblestone streets. Tourists snapped photos of the Colosseum, and the air carried the scent of espresso and freshly baked cornetti. Dylan Whitaker, now 27, stood in the Piazza Navona, his sketchbook open, his dark hair tousled by a gentle breeze. His green eyes, sharp and soulful, traced the curves of Bernini's Fountain of the Four Rivers, and his chiseled features caught the glances of passers-by. Dressed in a linen shirt and worn jeans, his handsome presence blended effortlessly with the city's timeless beauty. He'd arrived in Italy a week ago, invited by a prestigious art institute to study sacred art for a month, an opportunity that felt like a dream. Dylan's days were filled with wonder. He wandered through basilicas, his sketchpad filling with drawings of gilded altars and frescoed ceilings. One afternoon, inside the Basilica of Santa Maria, in Trastevere, he stood before a 12th-century mosaic, its gold tiles shimmering in the dim light. He was sketching the Virgin Mary's serene face when a voice interrupted him. That's one of my favorites, a woman said, her Italian accent soft but confident. The way the light dances on the gold eats like the divine is speaking. Dylan turned to find Giulia Moretti, a curator at a nearby museum. She was striking, with olive skin, dark curls cascading past her shoulders, and almond-shaped eyes that sparkled with intelligence. Her red sundress hugged her figure, and her smile was warm, inviting. "I'm Julia," she said, extending a hand. "You look like you're seeing God in that mosaic." Dylan laughed, shaking her hand, his own smile lighting up his face. "Dylan, and yeah, maybe I am. This place, it's overwhelming." Their conversation flowed as if they'd known each other for years. Julia shared stories of Rome's hidden art treasures, her passion matching Dylan's. They left the basilica together, strolling through Trustevere's winding alleys, stopping at a small cafe where they shared espresso and tiramisu. Julia's laughter was infectious, and Dylan found himself captivated by her energy, her knowledge, her beauty. Over the next weeks their connection deepened. They explored Rome together, San Clemente's underground chambers, the Pantheon's soaring dome, the Vatican's Sistine Chapel. One evening, as they stood on the Ponte Sant'Angelo, the Tiber River reflecting the city's lights, Dylan felt a pull he couldn't ignore. "You make this city feel alive," he said, his voice low, his eyes locked on hers. "Like every stone has a story, and you're the one telling it." Julia smiled, brushing a curl from her face. "And you, Dylan, see the soul in everything. That's rare." Their romance was a whirlwind. They dined in candlelit trattorias, danced to street musicians in Campo dei Fiori, and shared quiet moments in hidden courtyards. Julia introduced Dylan to her world, her artist friends, her family's villa outside Rome, where her mother Sophia served homemade gnocchi. Dylan, swept up in the intensity of it all, felt like he was living in a painting. On his last night, in Rome, under a starlit sky at the Villa Borghese, he took Julia's hands, his heart racing. "Marry me," he said, his voice trembling with certainty. "I know it's fast, but I've never felt this before." Julia's eyes widened, then softened with tears. "Yes," she whispered, pulling him into a kiss as the city seemed to hum around them. Back in New York, the city felt grayer, its skyscrapers stark against the August sky. Livia Thornton, now 26, stood in her Park Slope apartment, her auburn hair pulled into a messy bun, her hazel eyes scanning blueprints spread across her dining table. Her beauty was undeniable, her freckled cheeks glowed in the morning light, and her elegant frame, clad in a simple white tee and jeans, moved with purpose. She was preparing for a meeting about a church restoration in Harlem, her career flourishing, but her thoughts kept drifting to Dylan, who'd been in Italy for a month. She missed their late-night talks, their pizza nights at Sal's. When her phone buzzed with his name, her face lit up. Thornton. Dylan's voice was bright through the speaker. "I'm back. Can you meet me at Sal's tonight? Got something big to tell you." Livia's heart lifted. "You're back. Thank God. Sal's? 7 o'clock. Don't be late, Whitaker." That evening, Sal's pizzeria was as lively as ever, its neon sign flickering, the jukebox crooning, "Fly Me to the Moon." Livia arrived first, her beauty turning heads as she slid into their usual booth, her green dress accentuating her lithe figure. Dylan arrived moments later, his handsome face radiant, his linen jacket slightly rumpled from travel. He slid in across from her, his grin wide. "You look like you've been kissed by the Italian sun," Livia said, teasing. "Spill it." "What's the big news?" Dylan leaned forward, his eyes sparkling. "I met someone in Rome, Julia. She's incredible. A curator, loves art like I do. We're getting married." Livia's smile froze, her chest tightening. She forced a laugh, her voice bright but strained. "Married? Dylan, you've been gone a month. Are you serious?" "Dead serious," he said, pulling out his phone to show her a photo of Julia, her dark curls framing a radiant smile. "She's coming to New York next month. You'll love her." Livia nodded, her lips pressed into a smile. "That's wow. Congrats, Dylan. I'm so happy for you." But as she spoke, a strange ache settled in her heart, like a crack in a foundation she hadn't noticed before. She sipped her soda, trying to shake it off. "It's just shock," she told herself. "He's my best friend. Of course I'm happy." As they ate, Dylan recounted his Italian adventure, the basilicas, the sketches, Julia's laugh. Livia listened, her smile fixed, but her mind wandered to a memory from their senior year, a night in the architecture studio. Dylan sketching beside her, their hands brushing as they worked on their cathedral project. She'd laughed it off then, but now, the memory felt heavy, charged with something she couldn't name. "You okay, Thornton?" Dylan asked, his brow furrowing. "You're quiet?" She snapped back, forcing a grin. "Just tired. Big project at work." "Tell me more." "About Julia?" He did, oblivious to the shift in her. Livia watched him, his handsome face animated, and felt the ache deepen. It wasn't just shock, it was jealousy, raw and unfamiliar. She pushed it down, telling herself it was nothing, that she was just protective of her best friend. But as they left Sal's, the city lights blurring around her, Livia couldn't shake the truth creeping into her heart. She was in love with Dylan, and she'd only just realized it. Chapter 4. The Weight of Realization. New York City in September 2023 was a kaleidoscope of motion, its streets alive with the clatter of construction cranes and the chatter of tourists. The late summer heat lingered, softening the edges of the city's glass towers as the sun dipped low, casting golden reflections across the Hudson River. Livia Thornton, now 26, stood on the steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, her auburn hair shimmering like polished copper under the afternoon light. Her hazel eyes, framed by lashes that seemed to catch the sun, betrayed a quiet storm beneath her poised exterior. Her beauty was magnetic, her freckled cheeks glowed, and her slender figure, dressed in a flowing white blouse and tailored trousers, turned heads as she waited. She was here to meet Julia Moretti, Dylan's fiancé, who had arrived in New York for a week-long visit. The thought of Dylan, with his chiseled jaw and soulful green eyes, made Livia's chest tighten. Since his announcement at Sal's Pizzeria, she hadn't stopped wrestling with the truth. She was in love with her best friend, Dylan Whitaker. 27, and more handsome than ever, was caught up in a whirlwind of his own. His dark hair fell in perfect disarray, and his lean frame, clad in a paint-stained sweater, moved with purpose through his East Village loft. He was racing to finish a commissioned mural for a gallery opening, a project that demanded his mornings and afternoons. His striking features, high cheekbones, a smile that could disarm anyone, had always drawn attention, but now they were softened by a new intensity, a glow from his time in Italy. He'd called Livia the night before, his voice crackling with urgency through the phone. "Thornton, I need a huge favor," he'd said, pacing his studio. "Julia's in town, but I'm slammed with this mural. Can you show her around? You're the only one I trust to make her feel at home." Livia had hesitated, her heart sinking at the thought of spending days with the woman who'd captured Dylan's heart. But his trust, the warmth in his voice, made it impossible to say no. "Of course," she'd replied, forcing a smile he couldn't see. "I'll take care of her." Now, as Livia waited outside the Met, Julia emerged from a taxi, her dark curls bouncing, her olive skin radiant in a red sundress that hugged her curves. Julia's beauty was undeniable, her almond eyes sparkling with excitement as she waved. "Livia," she called, her Italian accent lilting. "Dylan's told me so much about you. I feel like we're already friends." Livia smiled, her lips tight. "Same here. Welcome to New York." Her voice was warm, but her stomach churned. Julia's charm was disarming, her enthusiasm infectious, and it only made Livia's jealousy sharper. They entered the Met, wandering through the Egyptian wing, where ancient statues cast long shadows. Julia marveled at the artifacts, her knowledge rivaling Dylan's, and Livia found herself liking her despite herself. "You love history too, don't you?" Julia asked, pausing before a sarcophagus. "Dylan said you're restoring a church in Harlem? That's incredible." Livia nodded, her fingers brushing her sketchbook. "Yeah, it's a 19th century Gothic revival. The arches are there like poetry in stone." She caught herself, remembering Dylan's words from college, and her heart ached. Giulia smiled. "You sound like Dylan. He sees art in everything. I think that's why we clicked." Livia forced a laugh, but the words stung. She changed the subject, guiding Julia through the museum, then to a cafe in Central Park. As they sipped iced coffee under the shade of ancient oaks, Livia's thoughts drifted to Dylan. She wanted to see him, to talk like they used to understand why. Her heart felt so heavy. That evening, she texted him, her fingers trembling. "Coffee at the Blue Java tomorrow, like old times." His reply came quickly, "You're a lifesaver." 10 a.m. work. The Blue Java, their old college haunt, smelled of roasted beans and nostalgia, its wooden tables scratched with initials from years past. Livia arrived early, her beauty striking in a soft green sweater that complemented her eyes. Dylan arrived, his handsome face tired but bright, a smudge of blue paint on his jaw. He slid into the booth, his grin familiar yet distant. "A mess, Whitaker," Livia said, reaching out to wipe the paint off. Her fingers lingered, and she caught herself pulling back. "How's the mural?" "Killing me," he said, running a hand through his hair. "But it's coming together. Thanks for taking care of Julia. She loves you already." Livia's smile wavered. "She's great, Dylan. Really." She paused, her voice softer. "You seem different, happier." He looked at her, his green eyes searching. "Italy changed me, I guess. Julia, she's like a spark. Do you ever feel that?" Livia's throat tightened. She wanted to say something, to tell him how his words made her heart race, but instead she said, "You deserve that." Her voice cracked, and Dylan tilted his head. "You okay, Thornton? You're acting weird." She laughed, too quickly. "Just tired. Work's intense." But her eyes lingered on him, on the way his smile lit up the room, and she felt the truth. Clawing at her, she wanted to be the one who made him feel that spark. Over the week, Livia took Julia to the Brooklyn Bridge, where they walked across its stone arches, and to a jazz club in Greenwich Village, where Julia danced with strangers, her laughter echoing. Livia watched, her jealousy growing, but she played the perfect friend. She tried to get closer to Dylan, inviting him to lunch, complimenting his latest sketches with a warmth that felt too intense. He noticed, his brow furrowing. "You're being extra nice," he teased one day, as they grabbed sandwiches near his loft. "What's up? You trying to butter me up for something?" Livia blushed, her freckles stark against her flushed cheeks. "Just proud of you, that's all." but her heart screamed otherwise, and she hated herself for not saying it. By the week's end, Livia couldn't bear it. She met Marin Quill, her closest friend outside Dylan, at a wine bar in Williamsburg. Marin, with her sharp wit and cropped blonde hair, listened as Livia poured out her heart, her beauty softened by vulnerability. "Don't know what's wrong with me," Livia said, swirling her wine. "He's my best friend, Marin, but when he told me about Julia, I felt broken, like I was losing him." Marin leaned forward, her blue eyes piercing. "Livia, you're in love with him. You've always been. You just didn't see it until she showed up." Livia froze, the words hitting like a thunderbolt. "No, that's a can't be. He's Dylan. He's getting married." "So what?" Marin said, her voice fierce. "You think love cares about timing? You've been his rock for years. You know him better than anyone. Fight for him, Livia, before it's too late." Livia stared at her glass, tears welling. The truth was undeniable now. She loved Dylan, had always loved him, through every late-night talk, every shared laugh. But he was engaged, and she was his best friend. As she left the bar, the city's lights blurring through her tears, Livia felt the weight of her realization, a love she couldn't yet voice, but one she knew she had to face. Chapter 5. Arrival in Capri. The island of Capri glittered like a jewel in the Tyrrhenian Sea, its limestone cliffs rising sharply against the turquoise waves. Kissed by the late September sun of 2023, the air carried the scent of lemon groves and salt water, and the narrow streets of Capri town wound through whitewashed villas draped in bougainvillea. Livia Thornton, now 26, stepped off the ferry onto the bustling Marina Grande, her auburn hair catching the breeze, glowing like a halo in the Mediterranean light. Her hazel eyes, framed by long lashes, scanned the horizon, and her freckled cheeks, flushed with the warmth of the island. Her beauty was breathtaking, her elegant figure, clad in a flowing linen dress, drew admiring glances from locals and tourists alike. But beneath her radiant exterior, Livia's heart churned with a storm of emotions. She was here for Dylan's wedding, a celebration she both dreaded and couldn't escape. Her love for him now, a heavy truth she carried in silence. Livia adjusted her sunglasses and joined the group of American guest friends from Dylan's gallery shows and Livia's preservation projects who had arrived for the wedding, set to take place in 2 days at a historic villa overlooking the sea. They piled into a fleet of open-top taxis, their laughter mingling with the hum of the island as they climbed the winding road to the Hotel La Palma, a luxurious retreat nestled in Capri's heart. The hotel was a vision of elegance, its pink facade adorned with arched windows, its courtyard blooming with jasmine. Marin Quill, Livia's sharp-witted friend with cropped blonde hair and piercing blue eyes, nudged her as they checked in. "You okay, Liv?" Marin asked, her voice low. "You look like you're about to restore a crumbling ruin, not attend a wedding." Livia forced a smile, her beauty softened by vulnerability. "I'm fine, just jet lag." But her eyes betrayed her, darting toward the lobby where Dylan was expected to arrive. Dylan Whitaker, 27, and impossibly handsome, stepped into the hotel an hour later, his dark hair tousled from the ferry ride, his green eyes bright with excitement. His chiseled features and broad shoulders, accentuated by a crisp white shirt, made him look like a leading man stepping onto a film set. Julia Moretti was at his side, her olive skin glowing, her dark curls cascading over a sundress that hugged her curves. Her almond eyes sparkled as she greeted the guests, her charm filling the room. Dylan's smile was radiant, but Livia noticed a flicker of fatigue in his gaze, a hint of the whirlwind his life had become since Rome. "Livia," Dylan called, spotting her across the lobby. He strode over, pulling her into a hug that felt both familiar and electric. "You made it. This place is unreal, right?" Livia's heart raced at his touch, her breath catching. "Yeah," she said, her voice soft. "It's like stepping into a painting." She wanted to say more, to hold on to the moment, but Julia joined them, looping her arm through Dylan's. "Livia, you're a saint for coming," Julia said, her accent warm. "Dylan says you're his rock." "I'm so glad you're here." Livia's smile tightened. "Wouldn't miss it," she said, her eyes lingering on Dylan, who seemed oblivious to the tension in her gaze. The group settled into the hotel, their rooms overlooking Capri's cliffs, where the sea shimmered like glass. That evening, they gathered at a rooftop terrace for a welcome dinner, the tables adorned with candles and wild flowers. The sunset painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Livia sat across from Dylan, her beauty catching the candlelight, her dress accentuating her graceful form. She tried to focus on the conversation, Julia's stories of her family's villa, the American guests' excitement, but her eyes kept drifting to Dylan, his laughter, the way his hands moved when he spoke. After dinner, Livia saw her chance. As the group dispersed, she caught Dylan by the terrace's edge, where the sea stretched endlessly below. "Hey," she said, her voice tentative, "want to take a walk? Check out the town." For old time's sake, Dylan's face lit up, his handsome features softening. "Like our college strolls through Central Park. You're on Thornton." They wandered into Capri's narrow streets, the cobblestones glowing under street lamps, the air thick with the scent of jasmine. Livia's heart pounded as they passed gelaterias and boutiques, the island's charm wrapping around them. She wanted to tell him everything, how his engagement had shattered her, how she loved him, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she pointed to a small church, its facade weathered but elegant. "Look at that," she said, her voice soft. "Romanesque influences, probably 12th century. It's perfect." Dylan nodded, his eyes tracing the arches. "You always see the soul in these things. Makes me want to paint it." He paused, looking at her. "You okay, Liv? You seem off." She swallowed, her hazel eyes meeting his. I miss us. You know how things were." Her voice trembled, and she took a step closer, her hand brushing his arm. Before he could respond, Julia's voice rang out. "There you are." She appeared, her beauty radiant in the moonlight, her smile wide. "I was looking for you too. Come back. We're opening another bottle of limoncello." Dylan laughed, slinging an arm around Livia's shoulders, a friendly gesture that felt like a knife. "Duty calls," he said, oblivious to the longing in her eyes. Livia forced a smile, her frustration mounting as they returned to the terrace. The next day, Livia tried again. She suggested a group outing to the gardens of Augustus, hoping for a moment alone with Dylan. The gardens were a riot of color, with bougainvillea cascading over stone walls and views of the Faraglione rocks rising from the sea. Livia, her auburn hair glowing, wore a sundress that made her look like a vision of summer. Dylan, in a linen shirt, was equally striking, his green eyes catching the light as he laughed with friends. Livia lingered near him, her compliments more personal than usual. "Your sketches from Rome," she said, as they stood by a lookout point. "They're your best work yet. You're different here, Dylan. Like you're home." He tilted his head, his brow furrowing. "Thanks, Liv, that means a lot. But you're acting weird again. What's up?" She opened her mouth, her heart racing, but Marin interrupted, calling them for a group photo. Livia's chance slipped away, her frustration a tight knot in her chest. That night, alone in her hotel room, she stared at the sea, the weight of her love pressing down. She loved Dylan, had always loved him, but he saw her only as his best friend. As the wedding loomed, Livia felt time slipping away, her heart torn between loyalty and a longing she could no longer deny. Chapter 6. The Bachelor's Night. The night before Dylan Whittaker's wedding bathed Capri in a velvet glow, the island's cliffs silhouetted against a star-strewn sky. The Marina Piccola, a crescent of pebbled beach framed by jagged rocks, hummed with the energy of celebration. A rustic restaurant, Trattoria Il Faraglione, perched above the harbor, was alive with laughter, clinking glasses, and the rhythmic strum of mandolins. The air carried the scent of grilled seafood, lemon zest, and the salty temps of the Tyrrhenian Sea. This was Dylan's bachelor party, a nod to Capri's traditions, orchestrated by Giulia Moretti's Italian friends and family. Lanterns strung across the terrace cast a warm glow, illuminating tables laden with antipasti bottles of Falangina wine and platters of fresh mozzarella. The night pulsed with the island's spirit, a blend of joy and timeless ritual. Livia Thornton, 26, and radiant, stood near the terrace's edge, her auburn hair cascading in loose waves, catching the lantern light like a flame. Her hazel eyes, luminous and restless, scanned the crowd, her freckled cheeks flushed with the heat of the night and the weight of her unspoken love. Her beauty was undeniable, her slender figure in a deep blue dress, its fabric clinging softly to her curves, drew glances from guests and locals alike. She sipped a glass of wine, her fingers trembling slightly, her heart a battlefield. She was here as Dylan's best friend, invited to join the celebration, but every laugh, every toast to the groom, felt like a twist of the knife. She wanted to talk to him, to find a moment alone, but the festive chaos made it impossible. Dylan, 27 and breathtakingly handsome, was the center of attention, his dark hair tousled, his green eyes sparkling with the night's energy. His chiseled features glowed under the lanterns, and his lean frame, dressed in a crisp linen shirt and tailored trousers, moved with an easy grace that made him look like he belonged to Capri's timeless beauty. He laughed with Julia's cousin, Luca, a stocky man with a booming voice, and toasted with friends from New York, his smile lighting up the terrace. Julia's sister, Chiara, a striking woman with sharp cheekbones and dark eyes, led a group in a traditional tarantella, her laughter ringing as she spun across the wooden floor, her red skirt flaring. Livia watched from the sidelines, her heart aching. She'd tried all day to get Dylan alone, suggesting a walk through Capri streets or a quiet moment to discuss wedding details. But he'd been swept up in the pre-wedding whirlwind meetings with the planner, greetings with guests, Julia's constant presence. Now as the mandolins played a lively folk tune and dancers pulled guests into the circle, Livia felt her chance slipping away. She edged closer to Dylan, who stood near a table, pouring wine for a group of Julia's friends. "Hey, Whittaker," she called, her voice cutting through the music. "Having fun playing Italian prince?" Dylan turned, his grin wide, his handsome face softened by the wine's warmth. "Thornton, you're not dancing? Come on. This is your kind of chaos." She laughed, stepping closer, her dress brushing his arm. "Not my scene, but you look like you were born for it." Her voice was light, but her eyes held of intensity that made him pause. "You're acting weird again," he said, tilting his head, his green eyes searching hers. "What's up with you?" "Too much limoncello." Livia's heart raced. She wanted to tell him about the ache in her chest, the love she'd only just recognized, but the words caught in her throat. "Just taking it all in," she said, her smile faltering. "Big day tomorrow." Before he could respond, Kiara grabbed his arm, pulling him into the dance. "Dylan, come on, you can't escape the tarantella," she shouted, her laughter infectious. Livia watched as he was swept into the circle, his movements clumsy but joyful, his charm drawing cheers from the crowd. She turned away, her chest tight, and headed toward the restaurant's interior, needing air, needing space. The bathroom was a small tiled haven, its walls painted with scenes of Capri's coastline. Livia splashed water on her face, staring at her reflection, her luminous eyes, her flushed cheeks, her beauty marred by the anguish in her gaze. "Get it together," she whispered to herself. "He's getting married, let him go." But the thought of losing him, of watching him build a life with Julia, was unbearable. As she stepped out, she collided with Dylan, who was exiting the men's room. His shirt slightly unbuttoned, his hair more disheveled than ever, his handsome face was flushed, his eyes bright with the night's revelry. "Whoa, Thornton," he said, steadying her with a hand on her arm. "You trying to take me out?" Livia's breath caught, his touch igniting a spark she couldn't ignore. The hallway was narrow, the music muffled, the world shrinking to just them. "Dylan," she said, her voice barely a whisper, her hazel eyes locked on his. Before she could think, she leaned in, her lips meeting his in a sudden, desperate kiss. It was brief, electric, her heart pounding as she poured everything into it, tears of friendship, unspoken love, raw longing. Dylan froze, his hands hovering, then pulled back, his green eyes wide with shock. "Livia," he said, his voice hoarse. "What? What was that?" Her face burned, her beauty stark against her panic. "I'm sorry," she stammered, stepping back. "I didn't. Ty shouldn't have." She turned and fled, weaving through the crowd, her heart racing, tears stinging her eyes. Dylan stood rooted, his mind a whirlwind. The kiss replayed in his head, Livia's lips, soft and urgent, her eyes filled with something he couldn't name. He'd always seen her as his best friend, his rock, but now his thoughts were a jumble. Why had she kissed him? Was it the wine, the moment, or was there something more, something he'd missed? He ran a hand through his hair, his handsome features creased with confusion. He wasn't thinking about Julia, or the wedding, not yet, but about Livia, her laughter, her sketches, the way she'd always been there. The realization unsettled him, stirring feelings he didn't know how to parse. Back on the terrace, the party roared on. Livia rejoined Marin, who noticed her distress immediately. "Liv, what happened?" Marin asked, pulling her to a quiet corner. "I kissed him," Livia whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean to, it just happened." He looked so confused. "Marin, I ruined everything." Marin's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. "You didn't ruin anything. You're finally being honest. He needs to know how you feel." Livia shook her head, her auburn hair falling over her face. "He's getting married tomorrow. I'm too late." The music swelled, a tarantella filling the air, and Dylan rejoined the crowd. His smile forced, his mind kept drifting to Livia, her kiss, her eyes, the way she'd run. He didn't understand it, but it lingered, a question he couldn't answer. As the night wound down, the sea sparkling below, Livia watched him from across the terrace, her heart heavy with regret and love, knowing the wedding loomed, and her chance was slipping away. Chapter 7. The Failed Confession. The night before Dylan Whitaker's wedding, wrapped Capri in a quiet embrace. The island's cliffs softened by moonlight, the Tyrrhenian Sea whispering against the rocks below. The Hotel La Palma stood like a beacon of elegance, its pink facade glowing faintly under the stars, its courtyard fragrant with jasmine. Inside, the hallways were hushed, their marble floors reflecting the soft light of wrought-iron sconces. Livia Thornton, 26, stood on the balcony of her room, the sea breeze tugging at her linen robe, her heart pounding like a drum. The events of the bachelor party, the impulsive kiss she'd given Dylan in the hallway of Trattoria, Ilfarigli. In her mind, each memory a stab of regret and longing. She'd fled the party, her lips still tingling, her mind a storm of what-ifs. Tomorrow, Dylan would marry Julia Moretti, and Livia knew she couldn't let it happen without telling him the truth. She loved him, had always loved him. Livia paced her room, its walls adorned with framed sketches of Capri's coastline, its bed draped in crisp white linens. She caught her reflection in a gilded mirror, her eyes wide with determination, her auburn hair loose and wild from the humid night. The weight of her unspoken love pressed down, heavy as the island's ancient stones. She'd spent the day avoiding Dylan, dodging his calls, his texts asking if she was okay. The kiss had been a mistake, a reckless burst of emotion, but it had cracked open her heart, forcing her to face what she'd buried for years. Marin's words echoed in her mind. "Fight for him, Livia, before it's too late." She sank onto the bed, clutching her phone, rereading Dylan's last message. "Thornton, you vanished last night. Everything okay? Talk to me." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but words failed her. Typing wouldn't do, she needed to see him. to speak the truth face to face. The thought terrified her, but the alternative, watching him walk down the aisle, losing him forever, was unbearable. She slipped on a simple dress, its soft blue fabric swaying as she moved, and grabbed her room key. The clock read 11:17 p.m. The wedding was tomorrow afternoon. This was her last chance. The hotel's corridors were silent, save for the distant hum of the sea. Livia's sandals clicked against the marble as she navigated to Dylan's room on the 3rd floor, her heart racing with each step. Memories flooded. Their college nights sketching in the architecture studio. Dylan's laughter as they shared pizza at Sal's. The way his hand felt brushing hers. She loved him, not just as a friend, but with a depth that scared her. She reached his door, room 312, its polished wood gleaming under a sconce. Her hand trembled as she raised it to knock, her breath shallow. Just say it, she told herself. I love you, Dylan. I always have. Before she could knock, the door swung open, and Luca Moretti, Julia's cousin, stood there, his stocky frame filling the doorway. His dark hair was mussed, his shirt unbuttoned, a glass of limoncello in his hand. His broad grin was all mischief, his accent thick. Livia, what's this? Sneaking in to steal the groom? He teased, his voice loud enough to echo down the hall. Livia froze, her face flushing. No, I just needed to talk to Dylan, she stammered, her heart sinking. Is he here? Luca leaned against the doorframe, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Oh, you want to talk to the man of the hour? He's inside, fussing over his suit like it's a masterpiece. Come on, what's so urgent? Planning to kidnap him before the big day. Her stomach twisted, the playful tone making her feel exposed. It's about the wedding, she lied, her voice faltering. Just a detail. I'll come back later. Luca laughed, oblivious to her distress. A detail. At this hour, you Americans are intense. Come in. He's right here. Dylan, your best friend's staging a midnight heist. Livia's panic surged. She couldn't do this not with Luca there, turning her confession into a joke. No, really, it's fine, she said, stepping back. I'll see him tomorrow. Before Luca could protest, she turned and hurried down the hall, her sandals slapping the floor, tears stinging her eyes. She reached the elevator, pressing the button repeatedly, as if it could erase her humiliation. Back in her room, she collapsed onto the bed, her breath ragged, tears spilling over. Stupid, she whispered, burying her face in her hands. The kiss had been reckless enough. Now, her failed attempt at a confession left her feeling like she'd lost him for good. Inside room 312, Dylan stood by a full-length mirror, adjusting his tie, his mind elsewhere. The bachelor party had left him rattled, not just the wine, the tarantella, or the cheers, but Livia's kiss. It had been brief, unexpected, but it lingered, a spark that refused to fade. He saw her in his mind, not just the Livia who'd kissed him, but the one who'd sat with him through college all-nighters, who cheered at his gallery shows, who knew him better than anyone. Why had she kissed him? Was it a moment of impulse, or something more? His thoughts were a tangle, not of Julia or the wedding, but of Livia, her laughter, her sketches, the way she looked at him sometimes, like she saw something he didn't. Dude, you okay? Luca asked, flopping onto a chair, his limoncello sloshing. You look like you're painting a masterpiece in your head. Dylan forced a smile, his fingers fumbling with his tie. Just nervous, man. Big day tomorrow. Luca raised his glass. 2 nerves. And to Julia, who's gonna make you the luckiest guy in Capri. Dylan nodded, but his mind drifted back to Livia. The kiss had stirred something, a question he couldn't answer. He thought of calling her, but what would he say? Why'd you kiss me? What does it mean? He shook his head, trying to focus on the suit. The wedding? Julia, but Livia's face, her eyes full of something unspoken, stayed with him, a puzzle. He couldn't solve. Livia, back on her balcony, stared at the sea, its waves silver under the moon. She clutched her phone, tempted to text Marin, but stopped. Marin would push her to try again, to fight, but Livia felt defeated. The kiss had been a mistake, the confession, a disaster. She imagined Dylan walking down the aisle, Julia radiant, in white, and her heart broke. She loved him, but he was slipping away, and her courage had failed her. As the night deepened, Capri's beauty felt like a cruel backdrop to her pain. The wedding looming like a tide she couldn't stop. Chapter 8. The Wedding and the Reckoning. The morning of Dylan Whittaker's wedding dawned over Capri with a brilliance that seemed to mock Livia Thornton's turmoil. The Tyrrhenian Sea sparkled like a sheet of sapphire, its waves lapping against the cliffs below. A historic villa perched on the island's edge. The villa, a 17th-century marvel of whitewashed stone and arched porticos, was transformed for the occasion, its courtyard draped in cascades of white roses and jasmine, their fragrance mingling with the salty air. Wooden chairs lined a stone aisle, leading to an altar framed by olive trees, where the officiant stood, his black robes stark against the vibrant backdrop. The September sun bathed the scene in gold, and the distant hum of mandolins from a nearby piazza carried on the breeze. Guests, a mix of American friends and Julia Moretti's Italian family, filled the seats, their murmurs blending with the rustle of silk dresses and tailored suits. Livia sat in the second row, her hands clenched in her lap, her blue dress clinging to her like a second skin. The night before her failed confession in Dylan's hotel room, interrupted by Luca's teasing, had left her raw, her heart a tangle of regret and resolve. She'd barely slept, her mind replaying the kiss at the bachelor party, the look in Dylan's eyes, confused but searching. She glanced at him now, standing at the altar, his posture rigid, his hands fidgeting with the cuffs of his tailored suit. The sight of him, framed by the villa's arches, made her chest ache. She loved him, had always loved him, and today she'd either lose him forever or risk everything to speak her truth. Julia appeared at the aisle's end, a vision in white lace, her dark curls swept up, a veil trailing behind her. The crowd sighed. Her family, her mother Sophia, with sharp eyes and a proud smile, and her sister Chiara, clapping softly, beaming with pride. Julia's steps were graceful, her smile radiant, but Livia's gaze stayed on Dylan, searching for a sign, any sign, that he felt what she did. His eyes met hers briefly, and for a moment, she saw the same confusion from the night before, a flicker of something unspoken. Then he looked away, focusing on Julia, and Livia's heart sank. The officiant began, his voice steady, speaking of love and commitment in Italian and English. Livia's pulse raced, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge of her chair. Marin Quill, seated beside her, leaned close, her voice a fierce whisper. "Liv, you can do this. Don't let him go." Livia shook her head, tears pricking her eyes. "I can't, Marin. It's his wedding. I'm too late." "You're not?" Marin hissed. "You kissed him last night. You saw his face. He's not sure either. Do it, now." The officiant's voice cut through her thoughts. "If anyone here knows of any reason why this couple should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever. Hold your peace." The words hung in the air, heavy as the Capri sun. Livia's breath caught, her body frozen. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant crash of waves. Then, as if pulled by a force beyond her control, she stood, her chair scraping against the stone. Every eye turned to her, a collective gasp rippling through the crowd. Julia's smile faltered, and Dylan's head snapped toward her, his expression a mix of shock and dread. "Livia," he said, his voice barely audible. She stepped into the aisle, her legs shaking, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she began, her voice trembling but clear. "I can't let this happen without saying it. Dylan, I love you. I've loved you since our nights in the architecture studio, since we sketched that cathedral together, since you made me laugh at Sal's. I didn't know it then, but I know it now. I can't watch you marry someone else without telling you." The villa fell silent, the air thick with tension. Sophia gasped, clutching Chiara's arm, while Luca muttered something in Italian. Julia's face crumpled, her eyes filling with tears. Dylan stood frozen, his gaze locked on Livia, his mouth slightly open, as if struggling to process her words. Julia stepped forward, her veil trembling. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice breaking. "Dylan, what is she talking about?" Before he could answer, Livia continued, her voice steadier now. "I'm not here to ruin anything. I had to tell you, Dylan. I've loved you for years, and I was too scared to see it. I'm sorry." The crowd erupted in whispers, American guests exchanging stunned glances, Julia's family murmuring in outrage. Dylan took a step toward Livia, his eyes searching hers. "Livia, Julia cut him off, her tears spilling over. "You knew this," she shouted, her accent thick with emotion. "You let her come here, knowing she felt this way?" She turned to Dylan, her hands shaking. "Say something." Dylan opened his mouth, but no words came. Julia's face twisted in pain, and in a flash, she swung her hand, her fist connecting with his cheek. The crack echoed, and the crowd gasped again. Dylan stumbled back, his hand flying to his face, shock etched across his features. "Julia, wait," he started, but she was already turning, her veil trailing as she stormed down the aisle, sobbing. Sophia and Chiara rushed after her, Sophia casting a venomous glance at Livia. Dylan looked at Livia, his eyes wide with confusion and something deeper recognition. "Perhaps I need to talk to her," he said, his voice hoarse. Alone. He led her to the villa's garden, a secluded corner where lemon trees cast dappled shadows and the sea stretched endlessly below. The guests' murmurs faded, leaving only the sound of their breathing and the distant waves. Livia's heart pounded, her tears still falling. "I'm so sorry, Dylan," she said. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just couldn't let you go without knowing." Dylan ran a hand through his hair, his face still red from Julia's blow. "Livia, that kiss last night. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And now this. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I didn't know," she said, her voice breaking. "Not until you came back from Rome. Talking about her, it hit me like losing a part of myself. I've loved you all along, Dylan. Through every late night sketch, every stupid pizza night. You're my best friend, but it's more than that." He looked at her, his eyes softening. "You've always been my rock, Liv, the one I go to, the one who gets me. But Julia, it was so intense, so fast. I thought that was love." Livia stepped closer, her voice trembling, and now he paused, his gaze steady. "Now I see it. What we have, it's deeper. It's you, sketching with me at 3 a.m., laughing when I lost my keys for the 100th time. It's always been you. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she laughed, a mix of relief and disbelief. You mean that? He nodded, stepping closer. I'm calling off the wedding. I need to talk to Julia, but it's you, Livia. It's always been you. They stood in the garden, the sea glittering below, as the truth settled between them. Dylan returned to the villa to face Julia, the conversation difficult but honest. She was hurt, her tears raw, but she accepted his decision with a pained dignity. Hours later, Livia and Dylan boarded a ferry back to Naples, their hands entwined, the island fading behind them. In New York, they'd start anew, their love no longer hidden, a bond forged in years of friendship, now blooming into something more. Wow, what a journey. Would you have the courage to confess your love in the middle of a wedding? Imagine standing up, heart racing, to bare your soul. What would you say? Share this breathtaking love story with your friends who adore a good romance. Drop emoji in the comments to let us know how this story made you feel. Did it make you cry, swoon, or cheer? Tell us your thoughts and tag someone who needs to see this. Let's spread the love.